Saturday's topic today is going to be discussing domestic violence, human trafficking, the stat of COVID-19. How is that being affecting everything? So we have our panelist,
Yeah.
Wanda Petty, a U.S. Army veteran and known as Sister Soldier,
Let me
President
say
and
this.
CEO of She Vet Inspire, and Jennifer Foxworthy, U.S. Navy aircrew veteran and post-domestic violence thriver, a victim's advocate. Hello, welcome to the show. And then Cliff, I know you're there, our governor of talk radio. We are ready to hear your words of wisdom as usual.
I
And
am
you can lead it off with Jennifer or with Wanda.
I am so pleased to have them both. This is a great show, and Dr. Arnold, always a pleasure to have you as the co-host. Appreciate you, you know that.
Yes, sir.
And as you know, our executive producer,
Yeah.
Glenda Smith.
Yes, she is wonderful. She is standing in the wings, always over a watchful eye over us. and
Without a doubt.
But this is topic of domestic
She's
violence.
Media producer Manny Cortazari, and as you mentioned, our assistant digital media producer Titus Williams. Yeah, you were talking about these folks. Sister Soldier, this is a great thing. I want to mention again, we've mentioned it, but it needs to be mentioned again, Doc, and you're right on that. Yesterday was National Purple Heart Day.
Yes,
I can remember years ago when people used to hang up, during wars, they used to hang up things in the windows if they had family members who had been injured or maybe killed.
Yes.
But they would put in the window, Doc, they would put in the window actually showing that, they had somebody who had served, which I thought.
Yes. And that recognition is so important, especially in a time like now when we are facing so many different controversial issues. And, sometimes, also, we are facing things that both Wanda and Jennifer know really a lot about is the domestic violence and human trafficking and how this COVID-19 is really impacting those issues and the statistics. Yes. So, Jennifer, why don't you lead us off?
Let me just say this before we do that. I just want to mention Wanda Petty, U.S. Army veteran, known as Sister Soldier.
Yes.
There's so much that she has done, and I have seen her in so many different places. She's in publications.
Yes.
Wanda just does all kinds of great things.
Very proud of her. And
absolutely.
An Army veteran.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And then Jennifer Foxworthy, U.S. Navy aircrew veteran.
Yes. And that's quite of a history.
Damn right.
Yes, thank you.
And post-domestic violence thriver.
Yes.
Victims advocate. We've got some ladies who they know what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Wanda, why don't you tell us what's going on with this whole issue? How are we, facing this issue now in COVID-19?
Well, thanks again for being on the show. It's always a pleasure. I really wanted to touch bases with this because I see how it's really started to impact the women in the military, as well as I'm sure that it's impacting women all around the world with the way COVID has encompassed everybody in their homes. And so we're looking at the pandemic, the invisible pandemic is what it's known as, along with trafficking. And it's been an increase, such an increase of trafficking, sexual trafficking for women and young girls during this time frame because of the financial shortage in many families. And so we really wanted to bring awareness to this issue, to bring resources to women and to give them hope and to let them know that we're watching and to give them some insight, as well as the community, so that we could keep an eye out to be able to call for help for these women and these children who are being, and men as well, who are being utilized in this manner and feel hopeless. The LGTB community is also being affected because people are more locked in now. And so when they don't have their normal fix, such as drugs or alcohol, or not being busy, occupied with something more positive, things go south. They go inward. And so when people go inward, sometimes what's in them come out, and it's being affecting others within their household, and people who are feeling like they are hopeless and have no other situation, no other way to get out. And it's a terrible feeling. So Jennifer specializes in this, and I really wanted to bring her voice to the subject matter. And with that, I'm going to let her go ahead and say what she has to say.
Okay, go ahead, Jennifer. Great.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me on as a guest once again. It's absolutely a pleasure, but I'm grateful that you guys are bringing awareness to domestic violence and human trafficking. Like Wanda said, they are invisible pandemics. COVID-19 is not the only pandemic, and I started, using that as a hashtag on many of my posts when I bring awareness. It's like COVID-19 has been a perfect storm. So for domestic violence, a victim who is with their abuser, there's already the stress of the emotional, the physical, the mental, because it comes in so many forms. But when a person loses their job or laid off, and the financial and economical factors, it amplifies the situation of an already uncertain problem. And so, yes, COVID-19 has escalated the cycle of abuse for many people. So I was going over the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and in March, their reports, the calls of reports, had decreased from March 2019. But we understood now your victim is in a close proximity. They may not have the outlet to reach out for help to the advocates, and that was what was driving the decrease in numbers. Now that things are kind of loosening up, they're starting to see the calls increase again. Yes. But again, it's that safety. It's that, what can a victim do when they can't get away? Maybe their job might have been the only source of having a break from the abusive behavior.
Yes.
And not having that job, that outlet, just made it all that more difficult. In addition, I would like to say, then if the shelters were full, because you had a lot of the homeless coming out of the woods and occupying the shelters, and then with the virus, the victims would have to determine, is it safe if they go to a shelter, they may contact the virus. So do you stay and put up with it, or do you chance it and contact the virus?
Yeah, that's a very dire picture you're painting.
Yeah.
Those things that have happened, and and plus, I was thinking when you were saying that, this decrease since March 19th, but here we're sitting in a time period where we don't know where this is going, and there may be a secondary pandemic wave, and especially in the fall and the winter months, ahead. So, this head that has reared itself, after March 19th may actually submerge again, as far as we know. And we need to be having some planning, it sounds like, to deal with that, because it's actually more depressing in the winter months and when people are locked in and they can't get out at all, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. So what is the method of trying to alleviate the problems that you are dealing with every day?
I would encourage victims to stay encouraged, and when there's an opportunity to reach out, to do so. or, if their life is truly in dire, call the police. I know, unfortunately, you have people, the political situation going on right now where people want to defund the police, and they think that putting social workers in the place of police for domestic violence situations is the solution, but it truly isn't, because the most dangerous time is when a cop goes to the house of an abusive situation. They don't know what they're going to walk into. And even though that victim may have called the police because they want the abuse to stop, they may turn on the police because they don't want that victim, they don't want that abuser to go to jail. So it's important for victims to find ways for self-care and to reduce or de-escalate the situation. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's, shutting themselves in the bathroom and meditating. It's a matter of self-preservation until they're in an opportunity to get help.
It's really interesting because when you were saying that, I was just thinking, when we come to private property, because we're a capitalistic country and that kind of thing, so we look at material possessions and that kind of thing. And when it comes to that, and when it comes to terrorism and the destruction of property, we say, see something, do something. Is there a responsibility for all of us to say something, and if we see something, say something or do something about it? To report it or to be more in tune to that, both the domestic violence and the trafficking?
Absolutely. I mean, as human beings or Christians or just people with a heart that cares, you have to put yourself in that situation. If it was your child, would you want somebody to speak up and speak out? And you can call the hotlines or the non-emergency number or 911 and make an anonymous report, or ask to do a welfare check. There's nothing wrong with that. And matter of fact, I would encourage those with neighborhood watches to bring the police in, to bring crisis center advocates into the neighborhood watch meetings to inform the residents of what they can do and should do if they hear the screams, if they hear the commotion, the furniture breaking, if it spills out into the streets. It's something that we can't ignore, because then if a person perishes, or it's that guilt and shame that they're going to have to live with, especially if that person dies and they just chose to look the other way. I wanted to mention that the the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233, and they actually do have a chat or a text system, and you can text "Love Is" to 1-866-331-9474. So, National Domestic Violence Hotline, they have now come up with a text feature because of COVID-19 and victims not being able to call.
That is fantastic.
It is. Give us that number again, National Domestic Hotline. What is that? The
national to call, it's 1-800-799-7233. And then they have the chat or text, and it's Love Is, LOVEIS. So if they text Love Is to this number, 1-866-331-9474. So Love Is, and they would text that message to 1-866-331-9474. So a lot of your advocates in these hotlines, national hotlines, they are doing what they can because they know that calling may not be the safe option.
Oh, yes, that makes sense. Yeah. Because someone may
it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing. The women have done so many things, Doc, to get together.
Yeah, this is phenomenal. And I'm so proud of both of them, both Sister
absolutely.
Soldier and Jennifer, for your, dedicated service to this country. Both of you served as proud veterans and did so much while wearing that uniform. So I'm really proud of both of you. But this is going beyond and showing that, citizen soldiers have a responsibility, to be engaged still. Once we retire, take that uniform off, we have to stay engaged in our communities and making sure that we are protecting our citizens. And so I'm really proud of that.
And I want to not leave out the military community because of the same situation is happening behind the gates on the bases.
Yes.
And so we have to be aware, we have to pay attention, and we cannot ignore. We just cannot ignore signs of our friends, of our colleagues, of our neighbors who are giving us the eye of help. We have to really be attentive and not feel like we're more afraid of COVID-19 than to save a life.
Right.
So
I totally agree with you.
If it had not been for a friend of mine willing to take me in and hide me during this time and situation, I wouldn't be here today. So I just want to encourage anybody who is listening and know of someone to really pay attention. And sometimes we can't coerce the individual to make that change, but we can inform them to help them be awakened and make wise decisions. And so I just want to just kind of add that in there because it's so important for the time that we are living in right now.
And
absolutely.
One of the things I like to talk about all the time, because women have really stepped up, and we all know that, but Sister Soldier, Wanda Perry,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Wanda Perry, to talk about what she's always done. She serves, she matters. I'm on the phone. I can't at the moment. I'm doing a radio show. She serves, she matters. I'm sorry, I'm obviously not in the
hotel
studio.
mates, yeah.
Yeah. But what she has done, and then some of these ladies have done some things. For instance, air pilots, fighter pilots, there's nothing that you can mention that they haven't done, and will continue to do. And I just think that's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is
we appreciate you, Cliff.
Yeah, and
we appreciate you. It's such an opportunity to be supported for allowing us to get our voices out here and to know that we matter. So we really appreciate you for your contribution, your trusting in us, and your upholding us on your shoulder. I don't take that lightly.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
And we're running short on time now, but I wanted to, I think, Cliff, I know they need to be coming back here to talk about this subject again because I think this is going to be going on for a bit, the COVID-19. And we have, one of the areas that really is important, too, is talk about the mental health implications and the mental health concerns surrounding this. If people have PTSD, other things, who are shut in, that this is really making those conditions much worse. But why don't you give us that national hotline number again and the Love Is text, and we'll get that, out there again.
Absolutely. For the National Domestic Violence Hotline, I encourage anyone, friend, family, or victim, to call 1-800 799-7233. And then they even have a line for those that are deaf, which is 1-800-787-3224. But their chat or text line is to text Love Is, LOVEIS, to 1-866-331-9474. It's so important to help people get the resources. I do have a nonprofit organization, Unstoppable You Ministries. We provide emergency services, training, and supportive resources to those affected by domestic violence, affected by human trafficking, and even homelessness. So we have a page dedicated to resources in many areas to include addiction on our website, and that is www.unstoppableUministriesinc.org. The last thing I would say, because I know time is short, is dealing with human trafficking. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry that affects over 40.3 million victims worldwide. So again, COVID-19 is not the only pandemic. Just in New Jersey alone, they saw a 200% increase in online demand for child sex traffickers or victims. And with the mask mandate, it is easier for the traffickers to hide the children that are the victims.
Okay.
So it's harder for advocates and rescuers to identify
who they are,
the victims because of the mask mandate.
Okay, so we're out of time, but I want to thank you very much, Sister Soldier, and also
Thank
Jennifer
you.
Foxworthy for talking.
Thank you.
Our next will be stay with us, who are the listeners, and we will be right back after this short commercial